Happy Easter, everyone! Today we're going to learn how to make one of my Easter bunnies. Here we go. Alright, so first thing you're going to want to do is take a piece of wood, cut it in half, glue it back together so that when it's glued back together, it ends up being a square blank. Before you actually put the pieces back together, you want to glue a piece of butcher paper in between. Now, you can go with another type of paper, but it has to be thick enough that it won't end up saturating the paper completely with the glue, because we want this to be able to split apart on the paper seam later on, and if the paper is too thin, that won't work. So like a cardstock might work, but I like butcher paper because it tends to be pretty good. Clamp that up, let it sit, start turning. I'm going to start with the larger blank that's going to be for the body. And for this bunny, I'm using cherry, and I just happen to have some 3x3 blanks, so I'm gonna true that up. I have one of my shorter tool rests on right now and didn't feel like changing it, so there's a lot of moving back and forth, but not for very long. I turned a tenon on the end so that I could hold it in the jaws of my Nova Chuck and get that tightened down and finish roughing the blank. I'm going to start shaping the blank using my spindle gouge, and this is going to end up being the front of the bunny at the tailstock end and the butt of the bunny at the headstock end, and you're basically making a large egg shape. Now, this can be whatever shape you want, but for my bunnies to look the way that they do, you're basically going to want a large fat egg. And at a certain point, you can take the tailstock away and try to refine the front of the bunny. You don't want it to be too pointy because this is going to be the chest of the bunny essentially. But I like to sand a little bit first before I move on to trying to refine the back. Then I'll put on some soft jaws, and this is one of the whatever Chuckies from Dowels Rubber Chucky set. And after I have that, I can start turning the other end of the body egg to try to just get it to its final shape, or at least close to its final shape before parting it off. And once I have a little bit more of the backside revealed, I guess, and I like the shape of it, hopefully I like the shape of it, then I can take that back end and sand it a little bit more and part it off and try not to drop it. Oops. This happens more often than I'd care to admit. And then once you're done with that, you're going to start turning the head. And the head, I'm going to kind of rush through this part because it is very similar to the body, so I'm not going to do too much explaining, but you're basically just turning a smaller version of the same egg shape. And again, I like to go with kind of a chunky egg, not too thin, because it'll make the body and the head look a little bit odd if they're too thin. So sand that, same process, do a little bit of work around the backside, sand that up, and then after you've got it sanded as much as you need to, then you're going to part it off. But I like to get it as close as I can to its final shape before parting it off so that there's not too much to hand sand. Now, this is where we are going to be taking our blank that we previously glued up, and we're going to make the ears. For this part, I switched over to my Axminster jaws, and I've got my Axminster chuck, and I've got the pin jaws in place, and I want to make sure that this is very well centered on that seam. If it's not, I'm going to have ears that are two different sizes. So I'm going to start again roughing the blank with the tailstock in place, take the tailstock away, and try to finish up that shape. For these, it is essentially another egg shape, although the top of the egg is pointed and the bottom of the egg I'm going to leave flat. Sand that up, polish it, and now I'm just going to get to a point where I can kind of part it off. And I like to part the ears with a slight undercut, and that way it sort of fits onto the head a little bit better. Although I'll do some shaping on this later on to really refine the fit to the head. You can see how centered that line is, so I think I did a pretty good job on that. Last but not least is the tail, and the tail is not an egg shape. This is the only thing that's not really an egg shape, and it's just going to be a small sphere, but you can make it kind of squat or like a button. Or you can make it an egg shape, it might just look a little funny. And again, I'm using my spindle gouge. This is a Thompson spindle gouge. I think it's a 1/2 inch. I really love those tools. And I'm going to leave a little tenon on the end, just so that I have something that I'll be able to glue into the body. And I like to put these little grooves onto the tenon just so that I have a better glue surface. It doesn't need to have this. You can just glue a dowel into the butt, but I like for the glue to be able to grab onto something a little bit better. So we've got our 4 pieces. And we've got 2 areas of the body that might need to be sanded, but honestly, you can just leave them as is if you've parted them off really nicely. Either way, we're going to take the body and we're going to sand a flat spot onto the body so that it can stand nicely. And another one at the top where the head's going to attach. You don't really need the flat spot for the head, but I like where it comes to the body at a flat a little bit better than if it were kind of a round point connected to a round point. And this is where we get to split the ears and see how well we've done with our turning and centering. And you can just break it right at the paper joint. It splits in half right at the paper, and then you just sand any of that excess paper and glue away until you reveal that beautiful wood underneath. Ooh, ah. All right. This is where it comes to a little bit more of a finesse with our sanding. So we don't want it to be fit like that because it rocks around on there. So I just roll up a piece of sandpaper and I hand shape sort of a round into the underside of the ear, and hopefully it fits the head. Now, if you've got an oscillating spindle sander with a really small spindle, this works well for that too. Or just a spindle sander that you put in a drill press. You could probably use that as well. I don't have one that works, so I sand by hand. Then you're going to take a small drill bit, I think that's about a 1/16 of an inch, drill into the bottom of the ears. Find the spot where they match the head, drill into the head. I think I drilled a little bit crooked on this. In fact, I know after making it that I did drill a little crooked, but it's okay. Every bunny is unique. This one's got one crooked ear. And because it's a really tight fit, I'm just shaving down the toothpicks a bit so that they fit a little bit better with some space for glue so that it's not all squeezing out. Make sure that they're the right length and that they all fit, and get ready to glue, but I'm going to keep drilling the other pieces first. For gluing the head onto the body, I like to drill 2 holes so that the head doesn't shift around too much, and I don't want it to spin, and it's a larger glue surface, so I want to make sure it's really secure. And I really just eyeball it, but sometimes I have to open up the hole a little bit more, maybe with a larger drill bit, and I almost always use a smaller dowel than I have the drill, and that just gives me some room to work with. Make sure everything fits, make sure it's not too long, and just double check everything. This is exciting. It's when everything starts to come together. Yay! Now, I didn't worry too much about sanding the back of the bunny because that's where I'm going to drill the hole for the tail. And again, I like to drill a little oversized because it'll still fit in and it'll kind of hide that oversized hole with the shape of the tail. So I'm going to use wood glue. Sometimes I just use a medium CA glue, but in this case, I'm going to use wood glue because I'm not in a hurry. Pressing in the toothpicks, letting them kind of sit for a second, and I'm trying to squeeze as much of the glue into the hole as I can, and then any of the squeeze out I'll try to wipe off, just so that it doesn't get all over the head. I know this is so exciting, watching glue literally dry. Glue some more into the head, and insert, and I think I put the wrong ear into the wrong hole, so I had to adjust by trimming the little toothpick that was in the one. And now there is some excess glue, and you can do one of 2 ways to wipe this off. You can use a straw, and the crease of the straw, if you kind of fold it right into that corner, will sort of scoop up any of the excess glue, or you could just switch over and use a paper towel. Either way works. If you do have too much excess, you might want to sand it a little bit first before finishing, but not totally necessary depending on what finish you use. I am gluing the dowels into the body now. Wiping off any of the really excessive excess. Now, I don't want it to squeeze all over the neck area, so any of the excess, I'm hoping that I can get rid of most of it. Glue into the holes in the head, and it's pretty good. Now I'm going to glue into the tail hole. I don't know what else to call that hole without making it sound really weird. And so that the tail doesn't fall off, because that is the one that I kind of risk it falling off, I'm going to tape it into place while it at least sets up. Now, this is something that I would recommend doing for the bunnies because they're a little bit wobbly. So I like to take a piece of double stick tape and tape it to a board so that I can finish it properly and so that I can get around all of the different angles and everything. So I'm just trimming the tape so that none of it is exposed, because I don't want any of the edges of the tape to ruin my finish surface. So this actually works really well for me, because I probably 8 times out of 10 drop whatever I'm finishing, so this helps me not drop it. I can take it outside into the fresh air, make the air not so fresh by spraying it with, I believe this is a Deft satin spray lacquer. I really like the satin finish. It's not too shiny, although it does give a little bit of a shiny finish. And then there you have it. Bunny bunny. Yay, bunnies. Yay, more bunnies. Yay! Now this is just the one that I did for the video, but I also have other examples of other bunnies that I did a couple weeks ago. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I hope if you have any questions, you'll reach out and ask them. Let me know what you think. And yeah, happy Easter, guys. Bye!